Welcome to the first episode of the Narrowgate podcast. In the first episode, I get a chance to sit down with Rich Bojda with University Lending Group. Rich isn't just a really good friend of mine. He's a top producing loan officer with the company. We sit down and talk about a variety of topics ranging from motivation, goals, life principles in general. I got a ton of value out of my conversation with Rich, and I hope you guys do the same. What's up, everyone? I'm here with Rich Bojda with University Lending Group, the man, the myth, the legend himself.
You're too kind. That was all scripted.
That was completely scripted. We were just talking about it right before we hit record, so it was definitely completely scripted. But yeah, this is the first inaugural podcast, which doesn't have a name, by the way. So I'm hoping with your sheer amount of wisdom, you're going to say something witty, and we're going to run with that as the title of the podcast, the name of the podcast.
Something witty. All right.
Yeah, no pressure.
Give me a little bit of time.
No
on
pressure.
That one. Yeah. To be announced.
Yeah,
So.
We'll figure that out. But I wanted Rich to have. I wanted you as the first person to be the first interview.
I'm grateful.
Yeah.
This will be fun.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe painful to watch. I don't know.
No.
At least for me.
So Rich was the first person that I met when I got into real estate. Hung my license at Rossi and Taylor. He was the first coffee that I sat down with and had a conversation with.
Yep.
Rich closed my loan on my personal residence back in 2015.
Was that long ago? So and you got it in 2020, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 5 years. Okay.
5 years. Right. And then we just closed 2 with you in the past 2 years. 2 rental properties, Liz and I. So we trust you.
And I'm grateful for that trust.
Yeah.
Personal and everybody, of course, but it means a lot. A lot of times realtors will send friends and family to me and they say, well, we trust you. And so that means a lot.
Yeah.
Because it means, you could send anybody, I suppose, to any loan officer, but when it's friends and family, there's a little extra meaning there.
Yeah.
Because you want them, of course, taken care of, and of course yourself and your own stuff. So
it should mean something, right?
It does. It means a lot, for sure. So
good. No, yeah, we're thankful. Your professionalism every single time. So that's definitely why we use you. But yeah, I know a lot about Rich. I think a lot of people in this market probably know a lot about you because I've gotten deals secured because I've used your name. So
they know of me.
They know of
the general sense of I'm a lender in the area. Yeah. So,
well, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? How you got into the mortgage business?
Yeah. So I've been doing this for about 20 years.
Yeah.
I got into finance right around 21. I got a investment license and I started to do that. Did that for a few years, really tried to make a go of starting a business with being an investment advisor. I've always enjoyed, I went to school and I studied finance and economics, and I like the technical aspect of all things finance.
So was that W-2 or an independent contractor position?
That was independent contractor.
Okay.
It was,
all right.
And so I was 21.
Yeah.
I was driving a Camaro with orange racing stripes.
Nice.
And I would go to people's homes and try to sell them investments as, baby-faced 21-year-old.
Driving a Camaro.
Did not work out,
yeah,
as you might imagine. So I was looking for part-time income so I can continue to do this because that was my dream. And I had a friend that owned a mortgage company or actually was a manager of a mortgage company, I should say. And he said, why don't you be a loan officer? And back then, I interviewed and he's like, do you want to be a loan officer? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're a loan officer. So that was the extent of the training.
Sounds like being a real estate agent.
So, there's no testing, no licensing, no nothing. It was just like you just started and you just originated loans. And because of the contacts that I had made in finance and because the rates had dropped so dramatically just in that time frame, they were coming down from the 7s and into the 6s, into the high 5s.
Okay.
It was easy. It was just a real good start. And I had I was able to learn FHA and conventional. And back then there were this evil thing called subprime loans. And so I had a little bit of experience with that. But from the get-go, my first month in, I knew I was in the right spot.
Yeah.
And so that was probably 2002, 2003, somewhere around there, and then went through 2008, And then in 2008 was when the whole collapse started. Ended up switching to, our company closed down, went to another company, and just kind of the dominoes were falling.
Right.
And I had a friend that worked at Edward Jones, and he said, why don't you come here? He goes, we can still originate loans. They're kind of referred out.
Okay.
Which ended up being a train wreck, but is what it is. It was an experience. So, but he said you can get your investment license and you can sell insurance. And he goes, at least you can diversify a little bit and be able to do a lot more.
Sure.
And I thought, well, things aren't obviously going well with these other companies, with so many of them folding. So I thought, well, we'll give this a shot. So I was able to take a break and from just origination, get my Series 7 and studied really hard for that for like 3 months.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not an easy...
I got 2 wrong on that. So I'm really proud of that. I got 2 wrong on the whole test. So it just speaks to like my technical nature, and I love the background and the knowledge of everything.
Yeah.
Once I got my my license, and it's called a can sell, I went out and knocked on doors. I had to knock on doors in 2009, which is when the Dow hit like 6,400, I think it was. It was the worst time to sell investments. But I knocked on like probably 2,000 doors, mostly in St. John, and sold like 0 investments.
Yeah.
It was just not a natural thing for me, and it's a different type of sales.
Yeah, I don't think that's natural for anyone. That's a tough one. But I think
at that point in time, it was very difficult to get any traction. So I did that for a few years, but I knew pretty much from the beginning I made a mistake in giving up the mortgage aspect. Even though I was able to refer things out, I had no control in it.
Yeah.
And it was difficult to let that go. And so eventually I got back into it, worked for a mortgage company in Chicago. It was a boutique mortgage lender, and it was really great. Bunch of young guys working in the office, very sales motivated and really aggressive, and came up with all these great ideas to how to do a really good job working with clients and working with realtors and builders. And that's really where my everything kind of formed. So that was 2011.
Okay.
And came to University Lending, which is where I've been since 2013.
Okay.
And so I mean, the rest is history. It's from the business side. So yeah.
And I'm sure, being on the lending side, having that background with financial planning, because you have a different vantage point, and I think you have a little bit more experience, and you could take on more of an advisory role of like, hey, let's look at this holistically, not just like emotionally, and make a decision based off that. And I'm sure that puts you head and shoulders above a lot of loan officers, right?
Well, it can if people want that advice. So I try to be very cognizant of the advice that they're seeking. So somebody going in and excited about buying a home, I certainly don't go in and be like, well, maybe it's not a good idea because you really don't have this, and this is where you should have lined up. I don't think too many people would be happy with me if I did that. But I do try to offer suggestions, or try to really be proactive about, this is how much you're going to need for closing, and this is how much your payment's going to be. And I offer those things at the time of pre-approval. So, I'll send a pre-approval out, and I'll just explain to people that this could be a little bit different depending on the type of home you buy, what the taxes are, where it's located, how much your insurance is, what the rates are doing. Right now there's a lot of variability within a range of interest rates, and that can make a difference in your payment if it's high 5s versus mid 6s. And especially with the cost of homes increasing so much and so rapidly over the last few years, affordability has changed for some people. So it's important for them to recognize that and say, this is, you need to know this is what you're going to be facing once you close on your home.
And there's different sales strategies there, I'm sure, right? Like some guys or gals that are in the lending industry, they might think about it like, hey, let's not scare them, but you want to set expectations up front and make sure that everyone's on the same page. They don't want anyone surprises. No one wants surprises midway through a transaction. Then, well, you didn't tell me about this, Rich.
and so that's, as rates were rising about a year ago, that did happen. And even though you go through payments and rates and all the things that were happening, there were several instances where people were caught off guard.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, why is my rate this and why is my payment this? And, well, the interest rates have increased a point, so, it was, when it all started happening, it was a very dramatic ramp up.
Yeah.
And people were so used to the lower rates for so long. So that's something you certainly don't want at any point, whether it's then or now. You want to set an expectation for what the rate and what the payment could be. And I always try to quote on the high side and say, this is what you should probably factor into your mind.
Yeah.
If it's 6.5, if I think that's kind of where the cap is, or that might be where it's going to go up to in the next few weeks or months. I have that conversation where I say, hopefully we're seeing this as kind of a cap of where the rates have been over the last few months, and it's been bouncing between this range. So if they're this, then this is what your payment's going to be. If they happen to go down, 1/4 of a point, this is how much it's going to affect your payment.
Sure.
So just so you have an idea, worst case, we're going to hope for best case, but here's what you should expect if things don't get any better, or if things get slightly worse, or whatever. So I'm trying to set that expectation so people don't go under contract. It would be much worse for everybody involved. Seller,
I'd
buyer.
be so mad at you.
So that would be this will be the last podcast.
Yeah, we're done. We're done.
So, but I mean, everybody, like the seller, the buyer, the real estate agents,
there's so many different parties affected by it.
Everybody's going to be pretty upset if somebody just taps out in the middle of the transaction. So
you were talking about with your time at Edward Jones and kind of developing those sales skills, and we were talking a little bit, and we've had this conversation before, but even just before we hit record, we were talking about you hear everything on the internet, where you watch YouTube videos, and there's so much content about there with motivation, and I think it's crap. And we talk about this and how much more important discipline is than motivation. Listen, I go to bed every night and I'm motivated to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and work out. How many times do you think it happens? Well, and we track these things because we have
a thing together.
We have a shared calendar and we track these things. And how many times do I wake up at 5 in the morning and work out?
I don't know. I don't know if I have the exact statistics, but maybe.
No. Motivation is crap. I think we talk a lot about that and goals and things like that, but if you don't have the discipline, when I first got licensed, I knew it was going to be an uphill battle. There's 3,200 agents in our market, and I wanted to know, okay, based on the little bit of research I did, I'm like, where can I just outwork people, and where can I do the things that no one else is willing to do? And one of those things was, I hate saying cold calling, but prospecting is such a better, more comfortable term to use, less off-putting. But yeah, that's all I did from 9 to 11 almost every day. It was just make those phone calls. And if I just relied on motivation, the first time I got hung up on, I would have been done. But you have to be disciplined. And I think that goes for all facets of life, but definitely in our business, I think it's paramount, right?
Absolutely.
Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think motivation is a good thing, and motivation can drive you to excel or to create a discipline. Like motivated to start working out, or motivated to get a spiritual plan together, or just like a personal plan together for your, like there's motivation I think has its place. Because it's that driving force to then be backed up by discipline. So discipline is what when you say, this is the plan, like, okay, I'm motivated to become a really successful real estate agent, and I want to close X amount of dollars or X transactions per year, or I want to help this many families. That's your motivation. And whatever that motivation is, I want to do that because I want to provide a really good life for my family, or I want to retire at 50 years old, or whatever it is. Like, that's your motivation, right? But without, like, the motivation is great, but if you don't do anything to back that up, the motivation doesn't have any value. And I've talked to you about this, and this is a bad word, and this is really bad in sales and for people that set goals. But I don't rely on goals that are things that I can't control. So my discipline and what I do are things that I focus on. So you made phone calls from 9 to 11 every day. That's a goal that you can control.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't control what interest rates do. You can't control how many people are selling their home, how many people are going to buy a home right now.
Yeah.
You can't control what's going on in the world or politics or what Russia's doing or Ukraine or what the new hot topic is on the news, and how that's going to drive your business. And so I see some people, and I've been in sales all my adult life.
Yeah.
And I see people that will set goals without having a realistic expectation of, is this attainable based on the circumstances that are in front of me?
Sure.
And then you're left with a lot of disappointment in some cases if you don't have that foundation of, I'm going to do what I can do.
Yeah.
And so that's what you have to focus on.
Yeah.
I'm going to make the calls from 9 to 11. They're going to be good quality phone calls. I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to have the discipline to do that every day.
Yeah.
And, you have to have, a couple of different strategies or whatever. And those strategies have to probably have some end goal in mind, which can be a goal of, I'm going to close this many transactions a month or a year. But I think focusing on the activity is more important. And knowing that if you continue doing this activity, it's going to pay dividends. The dividends are going to be dependent on a lot of different factors.
Yeah.
So, in 2020, the activity that you, the things that you did generated exponential amount of business.
Right.
Versus if you would have done the same things in 2018, would you have had results from that? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Would they have been as remarkable as in 2020? Probably not.
Right.
If it's the same, if you're doing the same activity now and you're doing the same activity then, it's the same thing. Like maybe you started in 2020 or 2021 and you had this amazing results and you did the same thing, or maybe you even did more in 2022 and 2023 and you're not seeing the same results. That can be demotivating, and that's where that motivation fails.
Yeah.
The discipline to say, I just got to keep doing it because things are going to change over time.
Yeah.
The markets are going to recycle, and so the seeds I'm planting now are going to be sprouts. Maybe not today, but maybe in 2024, maybe 2025, maybe somebody I'm talking to today isn't a buyer, but they refer me to a seller, or they refer me to somebody else down the road. So it all is about that base activity and the discipline of doing that.
Yep.
So
I could not agree anymore. And it's funny because you can extrapolate that further, and depending on how in depth you want to get. And I'm not like this, but you could have quarterly goals, right? And then track phone call activity every day. So say if I make 50 phone calls, that leads to 2 appointments and one sale, right? Well, like you said, there's different variable inputs. So when the market shifts, that might get a little bit, you might have to make 75, 100 phone calls, right? To get those 2 appointments.
Right.
So you can kind of track that and break that down quarterly. And then you can kind of manipulate your data to, I don't know if that's a proper term.
No, I think you're spot on. You can take that data, manipulate what results you want to get, and then translate that into the activity you need to do to
get the same results. Yeah.
Yep. So
I'm not there. I can't sit down and mentally work through that. I'd rather just, like you said, focus on the activity. If I do track my numbers. I don't know if you're kind of the same way. I'll break them down, and I'm tracking them every year, and then I'll look I'll do year over year numbers based on the first quarter. I'll review it based on last year and see if, am I at least in the same sphere that I was, and then I can kind of, all right, I'm way behind. I gotta get working, right? Yeah. And then you can kind of have that focused effort and get back to that.
Right.
So I do things like that, but man, people can take it to a whole nother level, which I think is good.
I think it's sometimes people will spend too much time on the data too, though, and then that just hinders their activity.
Yep.
Their activity is based on, just breaking down these numbers and spending so much time trying to analyze what they need to do. They don't end up doing anything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Or they get frozen in the data and they look at the results and think they're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And sometimes, strategies do need to change.
Sure.
Based on markets or, maybe the things that they're doing there's new or fresher ways to do them. And then switch up the activity to see how that translates into results. And, but you have to take that discipline then and to commit to something. I think that too many times people will start out and they'll work we just talked about this too, like these motivational seminars, and you'll pay $1,000 and they just puke all these ideas out at you.
Yeah.
And people leave overwhelmed, excited, but overwhelmed with like, okay, what am I going to do? And then they try to do all these things, or they have all these ideas in their mind of, I'm going to do this on Monday morning. And then it's so overwhelming, or they don't really have a plan to just implement 1 or 2 or 3 things, and then they don't do anything. Or maybe they're doing them, but they're not doing them well. Or they switch those strategies. Oh, I'm going to try this for a week, and then I'm going to try this for a week.
Yes. And that's what we talk about. Shiny object syndrome is exactly that. And the best analogy I've heard to date was building bridges, right? You're here, there's an island over here, and you go to one of these seminars, you hear these, 10 fantastic ideas. So you start building 10 little bridges, right? Mm-hmm. Well, progress is super slow. Well, and then all of a sudden they're not working, so you start fading them out. When really, if you just focused on 1 bridge or 3, whatever those, and put 6 months of effort into it, right? You're going to have unbelievable results.
Yeah.
But people, you start building these bridges and you get that shiny object syndrome. This didn't work in 30 days. I'm done. I got to go to the next thing. And it's like our business and agents, social media, stuff like that. When, hey, focus on the stuff that you're going to get those results and do those things for an extended period of time. And that's where where the results lie.
And that's true in almost everything. I probably won't make a whole lot of friends saying this about working out, but more and more people are kind of down on the CrossFit type of working out because it's the workout of the day, right? And so it's just very random. As far as what you're working out. And I'm not a CrossFit expert, so maybe I'm wrong on this and you're going to get a whole lot of hate mail and okay.
No one's listening.
That's right, that's true. So the one person, if you're a CrossFitter, I'm sorry. But, if you're training for something, there's this thing that people call muscle confusion. And they're like, it's a good thing. You're going to confuse your muscles and you're going to do different things. Yeah. It's actually not good. Like if you're trying to build strength or you're trying to build muscle or endurance, you want to do the same thing over and over and over again. Now you can do other things to supplement that work different muscles within that group or different strategies to supplement that.
Sure.
But when you're doing just random different things every day, you'll certainly probably lose weight. And you'll get in better tone, shape.
For you, right?
It's not bad, but there's just no specific goal in mind as far as what do I want to do? So for like trying to get stronger, you do the same exercises for weeks at a time.
Track those results.
And you track those results, and you try to lift more. You try to do more reps, or you try to so same thing. People get bored with working out. So they're like, I'm going to, be on the treadmill, or then I'm going to do some, burpees, and I'm going to do this, or some deadlifts or pull-ups. If you just focus on one thing over time, then you will see results. And, to your point, when I started in this business, restarted back in 2011.
Sure.
The referral base and the realtors that I knew from prior to the housing collapse, most of them were gone. I didn't really have, and I was at Edward Jones for a couple of years, so I wasn't really calling on them regularly. It was a different type of business.
When business came in, boom.
So it was referrals, past clients.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had to start that over, and for probably about 6 months, I did the same thing over and over again. I called these realtors and I had the same script and I had the same thing that I was doing. And I got to tell you, like 4 or 5 months in, I remember sitting in my office thinking, this isn't working. Like I'm not getting any traction. This is super frustrating. And I almost quit that strategy and went to a different strategy and didn't know what it was. But I just thought, this isn't working. Like, why am I wasting my time?
Yeah.
And within that 6 months, I talked to my manager and I'm like, this is just so super frustrating. Like, it's just not working.
Yeah.
And he said, just give it time. He goes, just give it. He goes, you're probably almost there. Just give it a little bit more time.
Yeah.
Just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing the right things. I'm like, man, it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
And it was probably the next month. I had one realtor that gave me one deal.
Yeah.
And that one deal closed on time. It worked out. The listing agent happened to be looking for a realtor.
Okay.
And so I was able to start working with her. And then through her, she was really busy in Porter County.
Okay.
I'm in Cherville.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but from that, the referrals came from Porter County. And then from the one transaction with that first realtor, she referred me to a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
And as that grew, it was like this exponential growth over a very short amount of time. And it was just like all of a sudden I'm starting to get all these referrals in from all these different sources.
Yeah.
And it was really like an amazing feeling, like I'm not doing anything now to deserve all of these referrals. But it was that 6 month seed, I'm planting those seeds.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing anything. I'm looking, I'm like, it's just dirt.
But from the financial world, everyone talks about the hockey stick, right? So it's just slow incremental growth, and then boom, all of a sudden you have that interest compounding, and then boom, it takes off. And it's a similar thing. And kind of going back, you said something really good about working out, right? And I always love the idea of the 80-20 rule, the Pareto's principle. Are you familiar with that? Have we talked about that at all?
I think we have, but
okay.
You're going to say it better than me.
So being from Chicago, the best analogy is, so 80% of results come from 20% of activity, right? So think about like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Yeah. 80% of their points came from 20%, or those two players out of the 12 people, but probably 10 people actually played on that team, got minutes. So 80% of the points the Bulls scored came from those two players, 20%, right? And you can it's not exact 80-20, but you can use that for everything. I'm sure the top 20% of loan officers originate 80% of the business. Same thing with real estate agents. Same thing with working out. Like you said with CrossFitting, and we don't want to go back into that and offend more people, but hey, guess what? If you bench, you deadlift, and you squat, and you do those three things, you're going to get about 80% of those results. Eat about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, take some creatine monohydrate, drink a ton of water, eat clean.
The simple things.
Simple. And that's another great thing for I'm assuming there's going to be real estate agents listening to this. I don't know that for sure. But this business is not, it's so simple. It's not easy, but it's simple, right? Just do the things that we're talking about, right? Over time. It's boring. But guess what? It works.
It's building relationships. And I think that's any kind of sales.
Yeah.
And I think more now than ever, well, not ever, but I think in the last probably 3-4 years, relationships matter more and more and more.
Yeah.
Having somebody that they don't know what's going on in the market, they don't know what's going on in real estate or with rates, or should I sell now, should I buy now? You really have to be a trusted advisor to them as opposed to just their salesperson.
Yeah.
And when you focus now, and it's always been that way, I've always felt that way, you get Zillow leads or Realtor.com leads, or you have some other source where things are coming into you.
Yeah.
Great. That's great. But it's really the relationships you build from those that are going to matter long term. Those are the seeds that you're planting that are going to turn into the fruits and the vegetables later on, and really going to be the stronghold of your business if you're going to do this for 30 years.
Yeah.
The Zillow lead is just the Zillow. I mean, you can just churn through those like any other type of transaction that just comes your way.
Yeah.
But if you don't foster that relationship with the people, then it's just one thing. It's not
there's a 100% dichotomy on how to do sales, right? You have transactional versus relational, and those hard sales tactics where you can always be closing. That's what people were taught back in the day, and I think there's still people that Obviously, everyone thinks of used car salesmen. Sorry, any used cars. What if there's a used car salesman CrossFitter?
CrossFitter, he's probably a big...
We're going to get shut down real quick.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, exactly. Feeding into people and creating a relationship is so different than, all right, how do I close this person? What do I need to tell them to get them to buy? Mm-hmm. People want to buy, right? People go to a car lot to buy a car, but they hate being sold. Mm-hmm. So you change that and you just start asking questions to figure out, well, what are they here for? Right. Not telling them what they need to do or what you're here to buy a Toyota Corolla. I got one on the lot. Well, no, like maybe they have 4 kids and they need a minivan. Like it's
leading them to a decision, and that's really, I mean, that is the foundation for sales. I think is leading people to a decision they already know they want to make.
Yeah,
but they're not sure.
Yeah.
So and that goes with, should I buy or should I sell now?
Yeah.
And asking them what's important for them. When the interest rates were like just skyrocketing, I remember working with one person in particular that was so nervous about buying, and he wasn't sure. He's like, Rich, what should I do? What should I do?
Was it me?
It was you and another guy.
Yeah.
But this guy was paying. He lived in Illinois and he was renting a place that was $3,500 a month.
Yeah.
And the rates, I think when he closed, I don't remember, but they pushed up pretty quickly. It was last year at some point.
Yeah.
So they were like this, and then they went up here, and he's like, whoa. But the reality was he was still paying way less to start building equity.
Sure.
So he was going to renew his lease, and I think he said it was, and I don't remember the numbers exactly, but maybe it was like going from $3,500 to $3,800 a month for this house he was renting. And I'm like, you're still paying, maybe $800 less a month or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Than what you would be paying for rent.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Sure.
And so, it was leading him to the decision. It was just overwhelming to see all the numbers. The purchase price, because that was higher than what he had been seeing for the last few years.
Right.
The interest rates, higher than, but he kept renting, and he was kind of frozen by indecision.
Yeah.
And wasn't sure what to do. And then called me, and I said, it's not going to get any better with rent.
Yeah.
At least with this, the taxes are fairly stable in Indiana. Your insurance is probably going to be fairly stable. The rate's going to be fixed, and it's only going to potentially go down over time.
Hopefully,
if the rates get lower and you can refinance. So
and then lock in again for 30 years.
So and so he was. So he ended up buying and felt really good about that decision afterwards. But he was literally frozen by indecision and fear of making the wrong choice for multiple years, which really ended up hurting him in the end.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's what sales is all about.
Yeah.
Is just not pushing somebody to make a decision that's not in their best interest, but something that is, and making them feel good about making the decision.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think we could talk about this all day.
Yeah.
All of these things we could probably delve into further, but
for sure.
We're pushing the limit on the time, I think.
Man, that went quick.
That did go quick.
There's so much more to talk about.
I know. We could do part 2.
We could, yes, for sure.
I'm going to throw you a curveball, though.
Okay.
All right? We talk about, to me, and I think we've had this conversation before, but like the concept of money and like buying back time, right? Like I view everything, I'm more focused on time than money, right? I want the time with my family, and that's more important to me than like the nice material objects. Like that's what I'm working towards, is how do I continue to buy back time? Having said that, if you could do anything so you were financially free, you don't have to work, what would you do?
Oh man.
I know, tough one. Would you still be a loan officer?
I don't know. Yeah, I've always had this dream of, I think why I'm good at this job is because I'm a people pleaser. I like to make everybody happy. I like to do the best job I can for everybody.
Yeah.
A mortgage is a necessity of buying a home. Nobody wants a mortgage.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to pay a debt. They want the home. And I'm just means to an end.
Yeah.
So, but I've always had this dream of opening up a restaurant or a bar.
have talked about it,
yeah.
yeah.
So, and I spend a lot of time on a lake in Wisconsin, and there's
Yeah.
this place called Gordy's, which everybody that's up there, if they're listening, they're like, oh yeah, he's always at Gordy's. But it's just a fun atmosphere.
Yeah.
You go there to have good food and, you know, listen to live music
Yeah.
and have a couple beers in the sunshine. And it's, when you go to a restaurant, you're expecting to have a good meal, a good time, you know, relationship, time to build relationships or spend with your family. So you go in having that expectation of having a good time, and if you have a good, you know, good food and good service and a good vibe, then they're, you know, they're going wanting to have a good experience, and they can have a good experience. So I think that would be what I would do if money was no object.
Yeah.
And
it didn't matter. You could just continue, because a lot of restaurants fail, but if you could just prop it up because you got all the money.
Well, mine would be amazing.
Yours would
so
be.
It would
I would be
It
there.
would be the best place in...
That's true.
It might not be Northwest Indiana, so there's not a whole lot of beachy vibes going on here.
Yeah,
so, but
no. I think.
How about you? What would you do?
I don't know. I'm asking the questions, not you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You know, it is interesting, though. I don't know that I would do this, but there's been one time since I left my W-2 job and got into real estate where I woke up and I'm like, I don't feel like working today. Like, it doesn't feel like work. It's light, right? You talk like, it just feels light. It's not like a heavy thing weighing me down.
No.
There's parts of it that are.
There's stressful parts. I do love, I think, because it's been something I've been so good at. And I feel like I'm knowledgeable in it, and I'm good at my job.
That changes everything.
It does make it very, I think it doesn't make it easy. Yeah. But it's something that just feels good. Yeah. You get to go to a closing and help somebody out, and their smiles on their faces. Yeah. It feels great to be a part of that.
Yeah. So. And you had to overcome challenges throughout it. It was never like you said, it's not easy. It's never easy. There's always challenges throughout the way. When it is easy, it's nice. Like you get appraisal waivers and things like that, or as is. Like I had one of those recently. That's a beautiful thing. But something does click. Like I noticed, we're going to talk for another 20 minutes, but something clicked like a year ago for me, whereas like the confidence level came through, and like, okay, I think that I'm the experienced professional, the trusted advisor, and once that confidence comes in, everything gets...
It changes.
It does.
100%. Because that confidence comes through to the people that you're trying to help.
It does.
And you could be the most knowledgeable person in the world, and I think that was really my problem with the financial aspect or financial services. Is I knew what I was talking about, and I knew the right things to recommend to these people. Yeah. But my confidence, because people have, they're laying out $500,000 in front of me. What should I do with this? Yeah. And there was definitely not the confidence at that point for me to say, well, I think you should put this here and this here and this here, and be the guy that's responsible for their wins or losses in the market. Yeah. And so that was, that's tough to overcome that. But once you do, then I think it just, then things blow up and become so much easier and fun, as you said. So yeah, for sure.
All right. I agree.
All right.
We're going to have to do part 2, I think.
Well, thanks for having me for part 1. I appreciate it. This was great.
If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Cell phone.
Phone, email.
Text is always good. Email's
good. Tell
the
people. Tell them where they can find you.
219-712-8470 is my cell phone, text, phone, anytime.
Reach out to me too, and I'll connect you with Rich.
Great realtor. So to buy or sell your home, this is the guy.
I'll take it.
How do they get a hold of you? You gotta. Don't.
It'll be in the link. But feel free to call 219-433-9154. Mark Plesha, Rossi and Taylor Realty Group. Rich Bojda, University Lending Group.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys, and we'll be back.